Welcome. This video presentation is about how social status can influence AI self-efficacy and intentions to use AI technology. We now live in a society where we think AI is widely distributed. But, is it? In fact, some people are less accessible to AI technologies than others. Some people may counter-argue by saying there are unintended exposures to AI, which is true. However, it mostly happens to those who possess these devices. In other words, lower incomes can easily lead to less opportunity to use AI. For instance, self-driving cars with sensors, radars, and communication devices are more expensive than older vehicles. It makes the adoption of autonomous vehicles harder for lower-income people. It proves that people with less financial resources are more likely to become late AI adopters. Education level and occupations should also be considered. As you can see here, it is speculated that AI will take over jobs that require less education priorly. It is not only unfair, but also salient since it can lead to a vicious cycle that disadvantaged people become more marginalized. Therefore, this study was conducted to inquire what factors influence the accessibility to AI technologies and their adoptions. This study has three theoretical backgrounds. The first one is the technology acceptance model. The technology acceptance model explains how people come to adopt new technology. This model mainly focuses on the influence of perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use on technology adoptions. These are hypotheses based on the model. Hypothesis 1a. Perceived ease of using AI has a positive relationship with perceived usefulness of AI. Hypothesis 1b. Perceived ease of using AI has a positive relationship with the intention to use AI technology. Hypothesis 1c. Perceived usefulness of AI has a positive relationship with the intention to use AI technology. This study also considered AI self-efficacy. Self-efficacy refers to a personal judgment of how well or poorly a person is able to cope with a given situation based on the skills they have and the circumstances they face. Based on the concept, this study defined AI self-efficacy as the belief in one's capacity to utilize AI technology for pursuing benefits. It is expected that people with higher AI self-efficacy tend to have higher perceived usefulness and ease of using AI. AI self-efficacy was expected to be affected by one's perceived mastery, vicarious experiences, and social persuasions. These are hypotheses based on assumptions. Hypothesis 2a. More perceived mastery of using AI products leads to higher AI self-efficacy. Hypothesis 2b. More vicarious experiences in using AI products lead to higher AI self-efficacy. Hypothesis 2c. More social persuasions of using AI products lead to higher AI self-efficacy. Hypothesis 2d. AI self-efficacy has a positive relationship with the perceived ease of using AI. Hypothesis 2e. AI self-efficacy has a positive relationship with the perceived usefulness of AI. Research question 1. Would technology acceptance variables mediate the relationship between AI self-efficacy and the intention to use AI technology? The assumptions about the influence of socioeconomic status on AI adoptions were based on the diffusion of innovations. While the diffusion of innovations is famous for categorizing adopters into 5 groups, it also argues the relationship between socioeconomic factors and technology adoption. The diffusion of innovations claims that rich people are more active in adopting new technologies since they have enough resources to overcome losses from wrong decisions. Age is another factor. Previous studies found that older populations tend to see themselves as too old to learn new things. These socioeconomic circumstances are assumed to impact the elements that determine one's AI self-efficacy. Based on the assumptions, these are the hypotheses and research questions. Hypothesis 3a. The education level has a positive relationship with perceived mastery of using AI products. Hypothesis 3b. The education level has a positive relationship with vicarious experiences of using AI products. Hypothesis 3c. The education level has a positive relationship with social persuasions of using AI products. Hypothesis 4a. The year of birth has a positive relationship with the perceived mastery of using AI products. Hypothesis 4b. The year of birth has a positive relationship with vicarious experiences of using AI products. Hypothesis 4c. The year of birth has a positive relationship with social persuasions of using AI products. Hypothesis 5a. The annual income has a positive relationship with perceived mastery of using AI products. Hypothesis 5b. The annual income has a positive relationship with vicarious experiences of using AI products. Hypothesis 5c. The annual income has a positive relationship with social persuasions of using AI products. Research question 2. Would self-efficacy variables mediate the relationship between socioeconomic factors and AI self-efficacy? Research question 3. Would AI self-efficacy mediate the relationship between self-efficacy variables and technology acceptance variables? 369 participants participated in an online survey asking their perceived mastery of AI products, vicarious experiences with AI products, social persuasions of using AI products, AI self-efficacy, perceived usefulness of AI, perceived ease of using AI, intention to use AI, and demographic information. Simple linear regressions were conducted when analyzing data. The results showed a positive relationship between perceived ease of using AI and perceived usefulness of AI. Also, both perceived ease of using AI and usefulness of AI had positive relationships with AI use intentions. So, hypotheses 1a, b, and c were supported. Also, perceived mastery, vicarious experience, and social persuasion showed positive relationships with AI self-efficacy, which had positive relationships with perceived ease of using AI and perceived usefulness of AI. The results supported hypotheses 2a, b, c, d, and e. Additionally, both perceived ease and usefulness of AI mediated the relationship between AI self-efficacy and intention to use AI. Education level showed a significant correlation with social persuasion but not with perceived mastery and vicarious experience. So, only hypothesis 3c was supported. The birth year showed no significant correlation with perceived mastery, vicarious experience, and social persuasion, which reject hypotheses 4a, b, and c. Annual income showed significant correlations with perceived mastery and social persuasion, which supported hypotheses 5a and c. However, there was no correlation with vicarious experience, which rejected hypothesis 5b. It was found that annual income and AI self-efficacy were mediated by both perceived mastery and social persuasion. On the other hand, education level and AI self-efficacy were mediated only by social persuasion. Finally, AI self-efficacy was found to mediate the relationship between self-efficacy variables and technology acceptance variables. So, what do these results tell us? First, people with high AI self-efficacy tend to think using AI products is easy and useful, which leads to more intentions to use AI technologies. Then, who has AI self-efficacy? The study showed that people with more financial resources were found to have AI self-efficacy. It was because they had people around them recommending the use of AI technology. Also, they were confident in using AI technology. The level of education also had an influence. It was found that participants with more education also had more people around them recommending the use of AI technology. However, higher education level did not lead to higher competence in using AI. This may be due to the different standards those two groups have about themselves. On the other hand, there was no correlation between their age and the level of AI self-efficacy. Finally, this study suggests that AI self-efficacy may be a key to connect diffusion of innovations in the technology acceptance model. Based on the findings, we should ask this: how can we reduce the discrepancy between social classes in terms of adopting AI technology? The study found that AI self-efficacy is a key that elicits the intention to use AI technology. In natural circumstances, people with more resources and education are more accessible to AI, which leads to higher AI self-efficacy. So, we need more efforts to provide AI learning opportunities to disadvantaged populations, such as teaching AI during compulsory education. Fortunately, this is already happening globally. Moreover, efforts from government agencies and policymakers are needed in order to lessen the gap between social classes in terms of AI self-efficacy. Human-computer interaction studies are becoming big as autonomous machines and AI technologies develop. As it grows, the impact of social inequality on cutting-edge technology distributions requires more attention. This research calls for more studies about this critical issue. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it.